Hey guys, so as you can tell by my shirt, we just recently ended the 50th anniversary of the Apollo program event that we were doing at my school. And I was one of the coordinators for it, so I got to meet all the guests who were James Hansen, Dr. James R. Hansen, I'm sorry, Francis French, Joel Banow, James O'Brien, and Bill Harwood. And we also got to watch the movie First Man, which I have the book right here. I also got it autographed by James Hansen as well. Let me find the thingy. Yeah. He says, to Tiana, all best wishes and many thanks for all your help on the Apollo Anniversary Conference. James R. Hansen, November 7th, 2017. Or 2018. But then also Francis French has a book. It came out a while ago. But it's called In the Shadow of the Moon, A Challenging Journey to Tranquility, 1965 to 1969. So I believe it's about just the Apollo programs. So this is what he wrote. He says, to Tiana, thank you so very much for all your hard work to make this event a success. Best wishes, Francis French. And they were really awesome. I was the chauffeur or coordinator for Francis, and so I got to drive him back to the hotel and this and that. And there was last Wednesday, I'm on this intramural soccer team for RAM TV, and we had a game, and we all were joking around with him. We were like, oh, you should go. And he was like, okay, I'm down. And so we went to this little this little panel thing, or this little discussion event thing at the planetarium for Mr. Banow. And I was like, did you still want to go to our game? And he was like, yeah. So I changed real quickly. We got there to the game early because everything here in town is right next to each other. And so we just talked for a while. I told him about the short film that I'm making and this and that. I asked him about his book, blah, blah, blah. Then he watched us play, and then we won. So that was fun. And then when we went to go watch First Man, he sat next to me. And in the movie, Dr. Hansen is actually in it. And he like jumped over and was like, oh, there's Dr. Hansen. I was like, oh God, where? It scared me senseless. But this is a picture that I got of of Dr. Hansen and Francis at their book signing. They actually switched the books. So Francis is holding up this book, and Dr. Hansen is holding up this book. And I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. Like, and it was actually their idea. So, and luckily also I got to interview Mr. O'Brien, Dr. Hansen, and Francis as well. So that was pretty fun. Like, O'Brien was just like off the cuff, like in spur of the moment sort of thing. So I didn't have any questions prepared for him. So he just kind of like comedically like made jokes and everything. And he was like the grandpa of the group, honestly. But then I had like 3 or 4 questions set for Francis and set for Dr. Hansen. And if y'all are wondering why I'm calling him Francis, it's because he doesn't like being called Mr. French. He doesn't like being called Mr. Francis. He just likes being called Francis because they're not used to here in the South us all saying like Mr. and then your first name, or Mr. and then your last name, or whatever. So he was just like, just call me Francis, please. What I was saying about the interview was like, it went really smoothly. I was like, how do you like Angelo State? What is your next book about? And then I had 2 individual ones for them. So for Dr. Hansen, I was like, what was your relationship with Neil Armstrong? We've probably been asked this a million times, but, and then the question. And then something else. Or no, it was that. And then for Francis, I asked, what is life outside of the museum and as like a full-time writer now? Because he recently, he used to be the director of education at the San Diego Air and Space Museum. But he recently left that because he wanted like something new. So he's going to become a full-time writer. And I was like, what is it like in these like 2-3 weeks of not being at the museum? Like, how have you like felt, and how has it been basically? And he gave some really great answers, and apparently everyone was asking him. Oh, I also asked Dr. Hansen and Francis what their next book is going to be about. So and I cannot remember. Dr. Hansen did say, he's like, I don't know what can top Neil Armstrong. Like, and I was like, Buzz Aldrin? But no one's gonna talk to Buzz. And then I was like, maybe Mike Collins, he's still alive. And he's, and Dr., I don't know, in this book, in the movie that they made of this, they got all the astronauts from, because all the astronauts who were like Apollo 11 guys, Apollo 8, Apollo 13, all of them, they've been there since Mercury to Gemini to Apollo. And I think they left during the space shuttles, which are on my shirt, sorry. But in the movie that was for this one, they basically were just talking about from Mercury all the way to the end of the Apollo missions. And the funniest one of all the astronauts was Mike Collins. And we have no clue why, he was just the funniest. Because there was this one scene, I don't remember correctly, but he was like, oh yeah, all we had to do is this and then this and boom, the moon. And I was like, okay. This picture right here is of me and Mr. O'Brien at the Icon Theater here in town after we watched First Man. And the reason why I have it in black and white and why I'm holding up that napkin is because the napkin is in black and white. And I told Mr. O'Brien that the film I'm making, the short film, is going to be in black and white because it's a horror film. And I feel like that'd be the best way to do it. Like, I could do it in color, but everyone else is going to be in color. And I was like, I want to do a little bit something different, a little bit more challenging. Because I've never done anything in black and white. I've always done everything in color, obviously. So I was like, let's do it in black and white. Give myself a little bit of a challenge, which, granted, because we're on a time crunch and I still don't have actors and everything. I have everything else except for the actors. I probably will keep it in color. I don't know. But the reason why it's in black, the picture is in black and white, and the napkin is because he was like very like intrigued and excited for me to be doing something in black and white, because people nowadays don't do black and white because it's all color. That's what we've grown up on. And so he was very excited about that one. And he was handing me the napkin. I was like, oh, thank you. And I started crumbling it up to throw away. He was like, oh, no, you're going to use it in the picture. I was like, okay. So I was holding it up. And then when I tried to hand it back, he's like, no, it's yours now. It's a souvenir. I was like, oh, thank you. And sadly, I'm going to have it over my shoulder here, somewhere right over there. We do have the poster that we had for the event, and we got each of the guests to sign underneath their little picture. And so once I get that, I am going to hang it up, and I will show you all what it looks like probably in a later video when I do have it. And since we did go watch First Man, and me like knowing a little bit of background about Neil Armstrong and about all the missions, because I love space. Like, Apollo 8 is my favorite mission, like by far. Like, literally my phone background is the Apollo 8 launch. Rip. But with all my like space intellectual background, I guess, like everything I know about space, everything I know about NASA and all the missions and the astronauts itself, especially Neil Armstrong, kind of watching First Man, it made a lot of sense. Like what Francis had said later on when we were having a Q&A after, was like, you have to watch it more than once to get some of these things. And I was like, in my head, and I told him, I was like, I actually got a lot of those things watching it the first go, because I already knew a lot of that stuff. So, and like one of them, there's one thing I saw that Dr. Hansen didn't even think about, was this is going to spoil the movie, because it is the end of the movie. It's like the last scene of the movie. So if you haven't seen it, skip over to whatever. I'm sorry, but I love spoilers and I have to say this because I thought it was really cool. So in the last scene of the movie, Janet Armstrong, which is Neil Armstrong's wife, is coming into the little waiting room, and then Neil is on the other side of this glass because he's still in quarantine after he came back from the moon. And they don't say anything. They're just acting with their faces. But he puts his hand on the glass like that, and then she is kind of like that or whatever. But I was like, because you could kind of tell, because they did divorce later on, and you could kind of tell that they were breaking apart. And I told Dr. Hansen, I was like, to me that scene is NASA got in between them, because you can kind of see faintly in the background where they're doing that, the NASA logo. And I was like, because I feel like NASA got in between them, because he chose to go from test piloting to being an astronaut and flying in space. And that took a toll on him, that took a toll on her and their family, and it took a toll on their marriage. And so when I saw that and I said that, he's like, oh, I didn't think of that. And I was like, well, because me being a filmmaker, me like, I guess being trained and learning about all these things, I can see other things that like the director could probably see, but the author or someone else might not. Okay, so that was my recap of the 50th anniversary of the Apollo program event that we did at Angelo State. Leave a comment below if anything you love about space, any facts that you know about space, because honestly, I would love to know them. I freaking love space. Like when I was little, I thought I wanted to be astronomer, but then I realized how much math had to go into it, and I was like, no, no, no. I'm even going to name one of my sons Apollo Orion, because Apollo is my favorite missions, like Apollo 8. And then Orion is my favorite constellation, so Apollo Orion. Okay, so if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you know when I make a new video. Leave those comments below, and I'll see y'all next Saturday. Bye!